Hey everyone, I made it to Boston! And I'll be staying in Cambridge in this really cute space for the next couple of days. After dropping off my luggage, I went to Rosebud. We shared a couple of appetizers as well as some cocktails. After that, I retired for the evening, and the next day, I went downtown to explore. I checked out the pier, I saw Paul Revere and his house. Checked out some government buildings, strolled through the park, before I headed out to go see a friend for dinner at Sarma. The next day, I made a day trip to Salem. Yes, I pilgrimaged to go see the witch house, the historic districts. I didn't really go into any of the dungeon museums because they were a little too cheesy for me. I visited 3 cemeteries and walked through them, as well as stopping for pumpkin soft serve ice cream, as I've never had that flavor before. But I ended up heading towards the water and was able to visit the House of Seven Gables. My favorite owner of the House of Seven Gables was a woman and took over her family business, which was unheard of. She didn't want to marry because she would have to relinquish her ownership to her potential husband. So she took on companions and lived her life doing good business and seeing whoever she pleased. I took the train back down to Cambridge, and then it was dinner at Viale, an Italian restaurant, before I tucked in early because I had a flight to catch the next morning. The last and final stop was Philadelphia. I think I've been when I was younger because I remember seeing the Liberty Bell, but that was years ago. I had a whole aisle to myself on the flight over from Boston and checked into a brand new apartment that had a really bold green color wall as well as incredibly tall ceilings.
Yay, I made it to Philly.
I took transport around Logan Square and then headed to the park where I visited the Fountain of Seahorses. Overlooked the river and saw the Fairmount Waterworks in the distance. And then I went up the stairs to take photos of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. However, the moment I walked in, the security guard said that they were about to close. I said that wasn't a problem as I just wanted to take a photo being in the space. So he took the photo for me with my phone and then told me that if I came back tomorrow, there is a live jazz band that plays every first Friday of the month and that he would get me in for free. I told him I wasn't sure what my plans were as I was going to be playing during my stay, but I kept it open and thanked him for his kindness. It was still a little light out, so I decided to go toward City Hall, which was huge. I later found out in a tour that one guy had sculpted over 250 statues, I think, just for this building, which is insane. To the left was the Freemasons building, and they were about to close as well. However, the security guard also let me take a couple of pictures before they closed for the day. Philly has a lot of these love sculptures all around in different languages. I remember one of these planted in New York while I was living there, so I took a photo as the sun was setting. The sun was setting fast, and what better way to end the day in Philadelphia with a Philly cheesesteak? The one I chose was D'Alessandro's Steaks. It was a little bit of a trek, but because the reviews were so good, I decided to try it out. There is about a 10 to 15 minute wait to order and another 15 to 20 minutes just to get the Philly cheesesteak to go. I ate it as I ordered an Uber, which took another 15 minutes to arrive, and a 30-minute drive back to my apartment. If traffic wasn't an issue, it might have been worth it, but I was just really glad to be back and go to bed. The next morning, I woke up bright and early since I was still on West Coast time, and today was museum day. I headed towards Logan Square once again and stopped by the Academy of Natural Sciences to take a look on the inside. Then I walked towards the Franklin Institute just to see what that looked like as well. And then I headed towards One Liberty to go all the way up to see the 360 view of the city and the infamous Ben Franklin, my favorite banknote. I was just in time for a tour, and the guide was super knowledgeable. I think I stayed there for over an hour listening to him talk about history, and while he was narrating, we saw the Coast Guard come up the river as the head of the department was in town for the weekend. The tour guide was actually going to give him an exclusive walk around later that evening. He mentioned at the Macy's store there was a grand organ that played twice a day, once at noon and again in the evening. I rushed over to see if I could catch it, walking through the City Hall building this time. And when I got there, I noticed I was 10 minutes late. So I asked the register nearby to see if the organs had played yet, and she said they were late. 15 minutes later, the organist started playing, and I was able to watch it in its glory from one of the higher floors in the department store. I also met a sweet couple from California who were leaving that afternoon and told me about a full orchestra playing for the organ's anniversary. However, I had a session that afternoon and evening and probably wouldn't have made it, but I thanked them for the information and wished them safe travels. Since it was lunchtime, I went to Reading Terminal and decided to try another Philly cheesesteak, cause why stick with just one when you have a whole city ready to feed you? So I I got a sandwich from Denick's roast pork in the classic style. I could have gone without the collard greens and added a chipotle mayo sauce, but it was juicy. Benjamin Franklin was a popular guy around these parts, and for good reason. I went back to the Franklin Institute because I wanted to explore all the different things that was associated with him, from inventions to trains, and even an observatory on the rooftop. Next, I visited the Barnes Foundation, and this is a private collector's museum. There was so much art on the walls and in displays that it took a lot of brain power to absorb everything in such a short amount of time. They also requested that I check my coat because I guess it was too long and it may disrupt the people around me or some of the art. I'm not sure. Some guy also saw me setting up to try to take a photo of myself in the room, and he offered to take it for me, but since I already had my phone set up, I told him it was okay. He stuck around to watch me work, and then after asked if I was a YouTuber, which I said yes. Not that I'm a very popular one, but that's what I do anyway. I gave him my channel, and we both exited the premises. Anyway, the building was also really minimalistic with beautiful landscaping. After that, I passed by the Rodin Museum, and I didn't go in this one, but I did take a stroll on the property, and of course took photos of all of his creations sculpted into one, also known as the Gates of Hell. I returned to my apartment for a couple of sessions, and since I had some time afterwards, I actually went over to the Philadelphia Museum of Art and went to look for the guard that I spoke to see if I could redeem that complimentary entrance. I ended up actually finding him, and he already had the ticket printed in his pocket and said that he was really glad that I came back and to enjoy. I thought it would be a waste not to take a look at the museum, and I ended up spending 4 hours going through every wing and flying through the corridors. And in between, I was able to hear the live band play their awesome jazz. I was able to sit on the steps for a little bit to enjoy their music with 100% attention and to take a break from running around. The doors stay open a little longer on Fridays, especially when they have live music, so this experience was truly a blessing. I just wish I could live in museums. So many gorgeous things! Priceless historical artifacts, famous paintings, thought-provoking sculptures. Art says it all. I stayed there for so long that it was dark when I exited, and I was too tired to go find dinner. Rather, I looked for food and made reservations for the next and final day, but went to bed after that. I don't know what I did for my final day, but half the day was gone before I knew it. I headed out to Philadelphia's Magic Gardens. I saw this on the maps and it had such high reviews that I decided to go and take a look. You're supposed to RSVP online for a specific time frame to prevent overcrowding, and I literally got the last ticket for the day before they closed. This space is indeed magical. In the 60s, Isaiah and Julia moved to South Street, and there was going to be a demolition of the area. And to prevent that from happening, because it was an important historical street for Latin American artists, he decided to transform that space. I also learned that he was extremely depressed for a very long time. And in order to help cope with this, he and his wife started making art out of broken things, such as plates, glass, anything that you can find, even metal like forks, bicycle wheels. And they would make these giant mosaics, literally 2 lots worth of colorful, creative messages and imagery that was inspired from his international travels to Central America, India, Morocco, Iran, China, Indonesia. Art exhibitions around the world like the Ideal Palace in France, the Watts Towers in Los Angeles, and the Rock Garden in India, Las Posas in Mexico were heavily influencing the garden. Being the last of the group was actually ideal because everybody else had left and nobody else could come in. So I stayed there as long as I could to take self-portraits and exchange photo ops with other strangers who had the same sense of wonder while we were all there. Even the bathrooms had unique pottery, and everything in the room was filled. Every crevice, every crack was intentional. I ended the day at Tallulah's Garden, which was a highly rated restaurant, and it was happy hour. And I had actually made reservations the night before, so I was able to get a table. I ordered a pork chop and had a nice Manhattan to kind of treat myself for the completion of the trip. I decided to walk a part of the way back to my apartment, going through Washington Square and Independence Hall, and of course, taking a peek at the Liberty Bell, which is actually lit at nighttime. I had an evening flight that night, and on the way back, rested in bliss as I reflected and recalled all of the things that I did during this time. I want to thank all my subs that I've interacted with on the East Coast, and stay tuned for next week as I visit the Pacific Northwest. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications so that you know when these videos come out. I've been doing them weekly, religiously. And until next time, stay safe, everyone.